Hello and welcome to What We're Watching. It's Katherine.
And Liz.
And Ed.
And John.
So I'm going to start off with Matlock, which is on CBS and also streaming on Paramount Plus. So this is the reboot. What? It's great.
I just didn't suspect that. I
Why?
I don't know why.
What?
I just didn't like... I know people are watching it. I'll let you talk about it. I just didn't think that'd be the top thing on your list.
Well, I do have something else coming up that I did finish that might be like more of a top thing, but I wanted to talk about Matlock because I had brought it up in our last episode that I was watching it, so I wanted to make sure that I did it this episode. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is a reboot of the original series. The character of Matlock is played by Kathy Bates.
Amazing.
Right. Now, the trick of it is she's not actually related to Matlock, the original Andy Griffith character, in any way. It's really just a name that they're using. So it's not...
She's a lawyer for the Matlock offices of Matlock, and Matlock?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
Is anybody Matlock?
She's Matlock,
But not related?
and it's not really her real name.
Wait a minute.
I know,
Is it a
there's
James Bond situation?
No. There's some subterfuge going on.
They overthought this. She could have just been a niece. I mean, there was not the need for it.
I kind of like what they're doing. So the premise is Kathy Bates, a 70-ish lawyer out of the workforce, is now returning to the workforce at this very prestigious firm. And what we very quickly realize is that she has ulterior motives for going back to work. And she tells everybody that her name is Madeline Matlock. Matlock, like the old TV show. Now, the funny bit of that is younger people are like, what are you talking about?
Wait, so in the show, she says, like the old show?
Yes. So in the show, Matlock, the TV show, did exist. So we are acknowledging Matlock, the investigative...
Whoa. I mean, I don't even remember if I ever watched an episode of Matlock. So in Matlock, there is some show going on?
No. It's that Matlock, the show that existed in the real world in the late 80s into the early 90s, it did exist. So they're acknowledging in this show, oh yes, I have the same name as the character in that television show.
Got it.
That's
okay.
What's happening. So she's going back to work. She's using this name Matlock. And what you discover is she's gone to this firm for a specific reason. And she has a plan to figure out some information and then use that information to right some wrongs. I don't want to say exactly what it is.
No, go ahead. Tell us the exact plot of the whole series, every episode you've watched so far.
Well,
We're waiting.
it's the overarching, like, I don't want to spoil what's going on.
Okay.
It was kind of a big reveal at the end of the first episode that she is not actually named Maddie Matlock and that how she is presenting herself to this firm is not accurate.
Maddie Matlock.
Yes. So she is really using to her best advantage the invisibility of being an older woman.
Now, I will say Kathy Bates, I saw an interview with her recently, and she did lose a bunch of weight, and she just felt like a new person. She almost wanted to retire because it was physically so taxing with the extra weight on her, and she took off all this weight. I don't want to say how because I don't really remember, so I'm not going to speak out of turn. But she's lost enough weight where she feels invigorated again. So to take on what is a procedural, episodic, weekly television show, she felt like she could do it.
Yes, I have heard her talk about that she feels like she has the energy to do it.
Right.
Which, a show like this takes a lot. She's the lead. She's in almost every scene.
Is she doing action? Dropping
no,
and rolling?
not really.
She
butt
got any
kicking?
hammers out? I'm just worried about anyone's ankles.
No.
but
that was a
Misery
reference. No, she is doing light action, but mostly in like a fumbling older lady way. So she'll like drop stuff or like,
To off-put them, to
Exactly.
bring down their wall so they reveal something to her.
Well, she is being very clever and sneaky and using this invisible old lady. You don't see them coming. You assume that they don't know what's going on. And then she finds out things and she swipes things when they're not looking. And she's really working it.
Love it.
Yeah, I am very much enjoying it. It is the first season. I don't know if it's gotten a pickup yet. There are 10 episodes for this season, and about half of them have been aired at this point, and I've watched all of them. And I really like it. I like the ensemble around her. So I'm just going to go through that really quick. So she is being supported by her husband, which she's told the firm that her husband is dead, but he's not really dead. So that's part of her backstory. She's got a whole different backstory at work. But we meet her husband, and he's very sweet and supportive.
Thank goodness Kathy Bates is a great actress to pull all this off.
Well, this is also funny because it is one of my favorite things when actors are playing a part in the show. So she is acting like this other, she's basically undercover. So it's kind of fun to watch her, try and be more fumbly than she truly is or whatever it is that you're like, oh yeah, that's an actory thing where how good would this person actually be at pretending to be not as with it as she truly is? I don't know.
Kathy
It's
Bates
fun.
can pull it off. I mean, we're talking about such a prestigious, accomplished actress.
She's fantastic.
I mean, her turns as of late in the Ryan Murphy, anthologies have been brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's pretty rare that a woman in her 70s, I've referenced her before, Murder, She Wrote. I mean, it's kind of rare to have a woman in her 70s get an opportunity to helm and lead a TV show. So just in that
Absolutely.
regard, fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So other than her husband supporting her, she has her 12-year-old grandson, Alfie, and he's sort of her tech support. And both the husband and the grandson are in on the grand scheme of what they're actually trying to accomplish in the big story of why she's at this firm and what she's trying to uncover. So you've got those two support people, the husband and the grandson. Then the main team that she's working with at the firm, she has a boss named Olympia, who's played by Sky P. Marshall, and she's really good. She's very serious and kind of cold, and our character of Maddie is trying to break down that wall and get closer, and she's made some headway, and they might become friends. But also Maddie is suspicious of her, so we'll see how that all plays out.
You have to, because you're dealing with a 70-year-old who's married. And in today's, writing, typically when you have a lead female, you want sexual tension or romantic chemistry.
Wait, this is a woman.
I know. What I'm saying is you can't really have that with Kathy Bates.
Oh, I see.
So you have to generate relationship, conflict, and chemistry other ways.
Yes, this is going to be friendship chemistry.
Right.
I think
But
is
you
what
have
you're
to
getting.
have it a different
and
way.
it's nice because it definitely started off.
Or that will be a major twist.
No.
Major twist, everybody.
No.
Oh, God. I'd watch, because you could have like a Sarah Paulson, Holland Taylor vibe.
What? Oh my God. Okay, well,
I
they're
would
definitely
watch if
not-
that was what was happening.
They're
Okay.
definitely not doing that.
All right, writers, I'm just suggesting.
Kathy
her husband
Bates'
could die, and
character
it's going to happen.
is happily married.
Fine.
So I don't think
Fine.
that's the direction we're
Fine.
going.
So, Liz, you want a Gracie and Frank and Matlock series?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry. Get back on track.
Okay, so her direct boss is this character, Olympia, and she is currently getting divorced from her husband, who also works at the firm, who's like a partner. And that character is played by Jason Ritter, who I am a huge fan of. He's a delight. So he is very wonderful. And you're, kind of watching this marriage dissolve, but also they seem to be on kind of good terms. So you're like, oh, I don't know if I want you guys to get divorced, but I guess we'll see how that goes. So that's one of the storylines that we're dealing with. And then Beau Bridges is the top tier partner at this firm, or just the boss. I think they just call him senior. I don't even know if he has a name. So he's just in charge. He's kind of bad though.
That's who she wants to take down. I'm saying it now.
I think we're headed in that direction.
I'm going to do my Law and Order
Yeah.
instinct gut. Beau Bridges in a small part, that is who ultimately needs to be taken down.
Well, what would be interesting is if there's a twisty twist, because definitely she's at this firm investigating the three that I've just mentioned. So her direct boss, Olympia, Jason Ritter's character, and the Beau Bridges character. She wants to know which one of them is really responsible for doing dastardly bad things. And it does feel like it would be pretty good and obvious if it was the Beau Bridges character, but what if it's not? So we're waiting to see how that all plays out. Okay. So then she has two coworkers, some younger characters that she's with. So it's very much like they're the young associates and she's like the 70-year-old woman, and the three of them are partnered together, and they're very fun, and sort of one is very prickly and she's kind of a fun character, and then the other one is a little more lighthearted and he's great as well. So that's a fun dynamic, this older lady with these two young lawyers. And then the last thing I wanted to say, this is actually much more on a personal note. I don't think I ever told you guys this, but when our dad was sick, I went with him. He was working on General Hospital, and he was kind of very low energy. And I went with him, and we sat in his dressing room, and Matlock was on TV. So in my little back of my heart, I have a soft spot for Matlock, just because, I'm there with our dad, who died not soon after that, like a couple months later. And just, we very quietly rested in his little room while he was waiting to go and do his scene on General Hospital. And we had Matlock on. So there's definitely a part of me that's like, Matlock is a little bit in my heart. So,
well, you made me actually kind of want to watch it.
It's good. I have
Kathy
high hopes
Bates
for
is
it.
always
Yeah.
great. So I'm kind of like, and now I need to know if I'm right about Beau Bridges.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to be spoilery, but I have a feeling.
What network is it on? Where can I watch it?
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. It's on CBS and also streaming on Paramount Plus.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. So that's it for Matlock, which I do have to say, it is hard for me to do a titular character show because
You said the word.
I know. I hate that word titular, but
You are the only person that says it in my life, though.
I know. Well, I hear it a lot. I think it's one of those, like, if you
never
hate it, you hear it.
No. Does anybody else hear it ever?
From Catherine.
Yeah,
Every time we go
we're the
back.
only person we hear
stop.
from.
Okay.
Titular,
It's the worst.
titular.
Okay, but-
I'll eventually catch up and watch with you. I just got to watch all the previous seasons of Matlock.
No, she's not even related to him, so no. Okay.
And Andy Griffith's show first, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's so we'll catch up with you in like a year or two.
Mike, there's no way. Okay.
Okay, Liz, you're up.
All right, so I have watched the documentary Breath of Fire on HBO Max, or just Max for some of you. It's a 4-part series. I definitely feel like there's so many documentaries now.
You
I mean,
are a documentary person, though. You
but-
catch a lot of them.
I think because of the streaming platforms, they've just become so incredibly popular and digestible because, let's be honest, there's usually a beginning, middle, and end, right? So storytelling wise, you're in a construct that's going to maintain a certain length, okay? So both for the buyer, they're not committing to like, oh my gosh, what if this turns into 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 seasons? Very rarely, it's like, no, this is the story. This is how it goes. So this is how we can do it. So this one is, I'll read a little description. It's YouTube astrologer Katie Griggs rose to fame as the face of Kundalini Yoga and reinvented herself as Guru Jagat, attracting millions of followers and basically becoming a celebrity herself. And it all goes to shit. Okay. And I love yoga, but I was like, wow, this is a level. I've gotten into hot yoga, but Kundalini, of course I told one of our sisters, and she was like, wait, Kundalini. So she was thinking it was like sexual,
There's another word that is very close.
right.
Yeah.
Cunnilingus.
That is the word, yes.
So she was like, wait, what kind of yoga is this? I'm like, no, it's not that. It's like breath. Like it's all driven by breath and getting all the toxins and clearing yourself, and Kundalini and the chic sort of religion that follows it. Usually they wear a large turban on their head, dressed in all white. It's yoga. It's a very healthy lifestyle, so on and so forth, right? So there's a institute of it in Los Angeles, and I actually met some friends there for yoga one time, and then they have a fabulous restaurant that's like vegan, vegetarian forward food. Delicious. But to me, it was like, this is such a pain in the ass to drive all the way here. I was never going to get roped into even buy a series of 10 classes. No. No. So I was sort of like, I think this is what this is. So after I had gone to this class, I guess Guru Jagat, this astrologer who found Kundalini herself, and she had been through trauma in her own life. She said she experienced sexual assault and being raped in college and was trying to take back her body autonomy and finding herself centered in her body. And Kundalini yoga, which is primarily a lot of breath exercise and body movement, help her get there. Kundalini yoga was basically brought to the United States and started here by a yogi in 1969. And of course, mass corruption followed. I mean,
no.
tons of followers. It's kind of with all cults, you started off with the best intentions and things were going so great in the commune and everything was awesome. And then why from the top down did it start to rot out? So awful, but that's a sign of a cult. So his reign was basically corruption, sexual assault, manipulation, fraud, tax evasion, just
Not very
everything.
relaxing for yogis.
No, yeah, that sounds terrible.
Probably not. And then also a lot of times what happens in cults is, the tithing or the financial commitment becomes so much that they almost become, and this is another reason in a cult, you end up not being able to do anything outside the cult. So if you were a lawyer and accountant, now you're doing all that work for the organization. If you were a teacher, now we have kids, now you're teaching the kids. All those type of things happen. And so therefore, having an outside life, you become so insulated within the environment, then could turn to a cult. It's so hard to see yourself out of it, okay? Now, he was of the era of not social media. It's funny because Guru Juggett, who's this young, under 40-year-old, very charismatic woman, basically said was given her name by him, which he wasn't alive. And she doesn't say he whispered into a dream. So there's a lot of inconsistencies, okay? But there is a charming saleswoman element about her, that she really knew how to speak the modern vernacular to a woman today to have their own empowerment, to find their own voice through Kundalini and the tons of programs. But of course they said they do all these interviews with past employees and it's oh yeah, you would Kundalini is so much breathing. Is that so by the time you're done with the class, you're a little lightheaded and kind of you do want to go right next door and get a nice bowl of lentils, right? But no, would you like to sign up for this?
That's
How about
a great
this
time
course?
to
How about this
hit
tier?
him up.
Yeah, just here's my credit card. Let me just go I need something to drink or eat. And they're what did I sign up for? And of course, like anything that lacks sort of an integrity, the more you pay, the more access you get. Which that to me always reeks a questionable element. It's pay to play, it's pay to access, and so therefore you are on a lower rung if you can't do it. And that's basically what happened. And they interview her parents, and I can understand why going to her class, if you're a lost soul in Los Angeles, it could have been draw you in, right? So it's very fascinating to understand the beginning of it in 1969, how it evolved, especially through social media, and using that tool that can almost be weaponized against a particular group to basically entice them into spending tons of money, giving up tons of their freedom, and devoting themselves to this organization to the point where you're where did my life go?
Yeah.
And how it turns, because I was really surprised. They still have businesses today, Yogi tea that's on all the shelves in all the groceries is their tea.
Really?
And that's like a $50 million brand of tea a year. So the Kundalini basically started underneath the original yogi still exists. Okay. So these are sort of offskirts that were supposed to be his LA satellite and things like that have gone off. So it starts to unravel because they were starting another basically studio, and they had investors that were basically wanting to understand where the money was going. And she was spending tons of it, the guru, basically on herself. And then being how dare you question the guru? Not good. And they were starting to get of course, an article was being written about her. And you can unfortunately get into a place in your life where you don't have self-awareness, or you have no more critics around you to tell you to pull back. So it's just a fascinating unraveling of what, like I said, my gosh, it all started with the best intentions. What happened? At one point, I turned to Mark, because he'd come in and out, my husband, and I said to him, they keep referring to her, episode 3, as if in the past, and they haven't interviewed her. Is she dead? So spoiler alert, she is, but I'm not going to tell you how or what.
Wow, that is a spoiler.
But she was young and, shouldn't probably have really died. But it's one of those things where you're the way they kept referencing her, you were what? But it was interesting because some of these women were so athletic and beautifully fit looking, but Guru really wasn't. Guru got to the point where she reminded me of an old family friend of ours, just the long wavy hair and sort of a more voluptuous motherly body. It was very fascinating. And I'm does she do Kundalini yoga? I don't even know if she does it herself. So just, I think, in today's times, understanding how we can be manipulated by social media, whether we can be manipulated by our own loneliness and wanting to belong somewhere, and understanding that sometimes the message is not actually what's going to be delivered to you, and to be careful about it. So, Breath of Fire on HBO. Fascinating. It all starts off well. Doesn't everything in life? Oh, Lord. So, well worth a watch for multiple reasons, I think.
Wow, sounds crazy. Interesting. Okay, Ed, you're up.
I did not watch a documentary.
What?
Or a procedural cop drama show. However, science fiction doesn't really get that far off of the procedural cop drama. They're usually like figure out a mystery every week kind of things.
Well, mine is technically a legal drama.
Well, yeah,
because it's not really cops, it's lawyers. So,
but the legal side of the drama stuff. So I watched 2 different Star Trek series that I wanted to bring to the table.
I thought you'd watched everything before already.
I do, and they had their either final season or the next season finally got out, so now I'm just giving you an update a couple months later. I'm still watching science fiction star stuff.
Sure.
I mentioned a couple space-related shows previously, so I figured I'd keep this going a little bit longer. We've got Star Trek Prodigy, which season 2 is on Netflix, and Star Trek Discovery on Paramount Plus. Star Trek Discovery is now over. That has got its 5 seasons. This was the final season.
Officially?
Yeah. There's they're not continuing any of the storylines. All the actors have,
died,
gone on to other work / they may end up in a different series. Interestingly, the animated series, I don't know if you knew that, but Star Trek Prodigy is animated, and it has 4 actors' voices in it from other Star Trek series.
Oh.
3 of them from the same Star Trek series. So that's Kate Mulgrew, Robert Picardo, and Robert Beltran are all from Voyager originally and are reprising all their roles in this animated series. So that's great because I'm a fan of those and I haven't heard or seen them in a long time. But in that second season, they introduced Wesley Crusher's character, Will Wheaton, from Star Trek Next Generation. So they've brought in other series.
Will Wheaton is back?
He's back, and he's got a really big role this entire season. So it's actually pretty fun.
Good for him.
Animated show.
Has he aged? I feel like he's never ages.
It's interesting. He is a time traveler in the Star Trek universe. He bounced out in his teenage years in the series. A time traveler's like, you know what? You're kind of smart. Why don't you figure this problem out? Why don't you figure that problem out? Actually, you should come with me and travel time forever. Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, Will Wheaton from Stand By Me. He's been around a long time.
Well, he's definitely aged since then.
No, he looks identical.
Yeah, and this is a much more contemporary-looking version of him. So he is not the teenage version of himself in this animated series. He's more
Wait, it's animated?
Said,
did I miss that?
The
Yes,
Prodigy
he definitely said it.
Part of it is...
And him aging makes no difference.
No. But they did age his character, even though he's a time traveler, and they didn't need to age him.
Wait, isn't there another Star Trek animated series, Lower Decks? Is that
Lower
a
Decks, and I
different
haven't caught up on that one. Lower Decks is actually about the rest of the crew and the other things that you'd be doing when you're on a main mission. There's stuff still happening on the ship. So Lower Decks is still on a ship and doing crewy stuff, whereas Prodigy, also animated, was less like that because the premise, I'll read the premise, it follows a group of young aliens in the 24th century who find an abandoned starship and then learn about Starfleet. So it's like a kid's entry into the Star Trek world, but then because they knew the adults that are making their kids watch it, they were like, can I get some Voyager characters, please? Can I get some Star Trek Next Generation? Thank you. So, enjoyable. I recommend them. They're kid-friendly, family-friendly, sci-fi friendly. Go for it. Go out there and see the stars.
And they're animated.
Literally. Well, and then Discovery, it wasn't animated, but it's now over, so there's no more of that coming.
Got it.
It's done its run. Oh, and one last thing I wanted to mention about Star Trek Discovery. Doug Jones, huge fan of his, no pun intended, because he's very, very tall. His character in that series with the reverse high heels, I mean, it's been a pleasure to watch him perform that character and inhabit that character. So I'm looking forward to whatever else he's going to have, access to with all of his height.
Doug Jones. He's so awesome.
And people would know him from Shape of Water. Usually he's in heavy
makeup.
Heavy
so
makeup,
it's hard to recognize
prosthetics,
his
yeah.
face. So
Yeah.
this was a lot of like actual performance and character development and lines. He eventually in this last season he gets a girlfriend. You know.
Yeah, because his really trajectory for or our awareness of him was through the director Guillermo del Toro playing his monsters.
Yeah.
And then finally, kind of like what happened also, like when you're behind the scenes and you're in heavy, makeup costumes or just doing the 3D animation capture, it's like, oh, you're actually so good. We're going to give you an opportunity to take all that off and perform. So shout out to Doug Jones.
Yeah, I will say he's also on, which is now going to be the last season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh my God, he's brilliant.
He's so fun in that. Yeah, he just had an episode.
That does have a lot of makeup and a lot of character element to it.
Well, initially, when he got burned to a crisp, that
God.
was very Doug Jones.
But
that
he's
he had to-
healing. He's healing.
No, he looks fine now, and apparently
so great.
they all think he's incredibly sexy, which
I can't.
is very awesome.
We have to almost just do a whole episode on What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you,
John.
Ed. And John, you're up.
Okay, so I went to the theater and saw We Live in Time. Okay, so it's the movie with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh.
Okay, now it's ringing a little bells.
So it's from director John Crowley, who did Brooklyn and Goldfinch. This is a similar relationship/drama to a degree, and you're really following them as they become a couple and then kind of have this whole life. It's not that they're time travelers, but we're, skipping forward and back, and which is a little challenging because you're constantly doing that. That is what happens throughout this movie. But they both give a great performance, so definitely worth it.
I had heard a little bit about it, but then the buzz was not enough that I was even aware that it was out or in the theaters yet. But they're both great actors, so.
Yeah, I mean, this early fall has been interesting for movies. Definitely a bunch of stuff has got kind of lost in the shuffle or not got the reaction that it seemed to deserve. So, yes, unfortunately, not quite making a big splash at the moment.
I do love Florence Pugh, though, so.
All right. Maybe a little hit when it comes to streaming. All right.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you, John. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the new season of The Diplomat,
I'm
season
watching it
2.
too.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Okay, so
I haven't started yet.
Oh, well, it's season 2 on Netflix. So it stars Kerry Russell as the American ambassador to the UK, very reluctant ambassador.
yes.
Yeah, this is not the kind of assignment that she wants. We talked about season 1, and one of my favorite things about it, which you hated, Liz, was that her hair was very disheveled. She constantly looked like, hairy.
She does not look like an American ambassador. She's not polished.
No, she looks like, a political operative trying to get stuff done, boots on the ground, that kind of vibe.
Right.
And she's being semi-groomed or floated as a VP replacement, which she does not like that idea either. So it's a complicated situation for her. And she's, I think, a fun character, and I like the realism of her trying to work really hard and then not looking super put together. But, as an ambassador, it's a little bit of a sticking point. So her husband is played by Rufus Sewell, who we recently saw in Scoop. He played Prince Andrew. Mm-hmm. Their relationship is really odd and contentious. Like, he's super duper in love with her. And
they were basically heading toward divorce in season 1 to the point where she was like, I'm going to divorce you. Basically, he said, you can't divorce me if you're going to be up for VP. So it was very contentious, but she's like, then you need to get the hell out of the UK. I can't do this job with you here, because he was a former
ambassador.
So he has all this knowledge and wants to kind of steer her and guide her, but she is not welcoming that advice so much.
Correct. It's also interesting because she does really respect him. She thinks he's brilliant. Mm-hmm. She just doesn't trust him. So that's a weird complication.
He kind of has an operative, element to him about, almost spy-like, and he's working the angles in his old relationships, which sometimes is counterintuitive to what she's trying to do.
Yeah, you feel like you don't know really what he's up to all the time. So season 1 was 8 episodes. Season 2 is only 6 episodes, so that was a slight bummer. But it has been officially picked up for a season 3.
Very diplomatic.
Oh, so the rest of the cast around Kerry Russell, playing a titular character again. She is the diplomat, right? So she's the titular character. Okay, so the other people around her, so she's got her husband. She also has her staff at the embassy. First and foremost is the character of Stuart, who I didn't fully understand what his actual position is. He's like, I guess, not the head of that embassy, but something like that. But really, he's supposed to kind of groom her and mold her for a friend of his who he's been talking to back in the White House, who's like, we think she's going to be our pick for VP. And if you could like zhuzh her up kind of and get her ready so that that is a more palatable choice publicly for the way that she presents herself. So he's got some complicated jobs ahead of him, both in season 1 and then again in season 2. He's trying to navigate how to deal with her and make her do her job, but also look better while doing it.
But he's not doing the job of making her actually look better.
No, not really. Not really. Not yet. Not yet. Also, the CIA station chief is a very fun character, and those two, spoiler alert, were dating. And that's kind of a rocky
But you haven't
situation.
said what happened that ended last season and kicked off this season.
What, the explosion?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't want to say too much
That's fine.
because if you haven't watched season 1...
Or listen to the other podcast of this that where you did like 30 minutes on the show.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So I guess in season 2, I can say we pick up where we left off, which there has been an explosion. Somebody does not make it out, unfortunately. And then it is the unraveling of why that explosion happened, why the previous thing happened, who was involved, and what are we going to do about it. And then a kind of big reveal at the end of the season of who all was involved. Because we kind of thought we knew, and then maybe it's somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Speaking
In the world of espionage.
in the world of
Assume nothing.
geopolitical intrigue.
This is the world of the diplomat, not espionage, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the one is a CIA person,
Well.
so there's CIA stuff going on.
There's a lot of like Russian, Iran. It's like always like, who's to blame?
Yeah, that brings us to who's on the UK side of the cast. So we have the foreign secretary, who's played by David Giossi, who is very handsome. And
He is, yeah.
there's definite chemistry between his character and Kerry Russell's character, which does not actually, all right, I won't say, but it...
Sometime chemistry burns you.
Yeah, it felt like it was really going to be kind of a fun thing, and then it doesn't pan out.
A chemical burn? I don't understand.
A chemical burn. Okay, then we also have the Prime Minister, who is quite terribly and wonderfully played by Rory Kinnear.
Yeah, he's great.
He is so great and very awful. So he, in this second season, a lot of him. I mean,
Yeah.
he's really in there.
He's not the one that died and then his twin brother came back in this season?
No, that didn't happen. And the last one that I want to mention in the UK side of the cast, the story is revolving around her a lot, is Cecilia Imrie, and that's the Margaret Royland character. And she's kind of a political operative / consultant or advisor. She's great this season, her whole storyline, because she's very sneaky. And we knew that, and now we need to squirrel her away and talk to her and find out some things. So she's great. And the new addition for this season 2 didn't come until the last 2 episodes, was Allison Janney is playing the vice president. So, of course, there's a lot of weirdness because Allison Janney's character is aware that Kerry Russell's character is supposed to be the new pick for VP. So it's like, well, why are we trying to get rid of Allison Janney's character? You know, why is she not good as the VP? So that's all very interesting. Love Allison Janney just showing up being real tall and real smart. And
She's solid in that type of character.
And
Yeah.
somehow this doesn't connect the series to West Wing, right? Like she
No.
didn't like move up the ranks and become vice president.
But
Why
her
not?
name's still CJ, right?
Yeah.
no, it's not. No, it's Grace Penn. Sorry. It's not even the same initials.
Shoot.
It's really good. And I did want to say that it was created and EP'd by a woman named Deborah Kahn, and she worked on the later seasons of the Showtime show Homeland. So I do feel like
okay.
Kerry Russell's character, Kate Weiler, is very similar to the Claire Danes character, like that vibe, right? Of Carrie Matheson. They were sort of like a
complicated,
Yes.
highly intelligent woman, in a very intense situation.
Yes. And sometimes wearing a crossbody bag.
Yes,
so
at the same time, there's a masculinity about both of them.
the way that they dress her, very, very reminiscent of that
Correct.
character from Homeland. Just, I don't know. Okay, so
I never finished Homeland, but I do remember I very much enjoyed Mandy Patinkin's character, and it was kind of like, oh, that's not actually going to end very well. I don't know what's happening with this character. I quit the show.
Oh,
so scary.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah. Okay, so that is The Diplomat on Netflix, season 1 and season 2, 8 episodes and then 6 episodes.
Great. All right, my second documentary,
Oh, okay.
Martha Stewart. Actually, it's just called Martha.
Oh.
On Netflix. So this is sort of the first documentary that she has participated in and sat with, and she was struggling, like, who do I trust to tell my story? Both the previous one I talked about, Breath of Fire, and this one. And I brought this point up in previous documentaries. It's what we now have is such archival footage to pull from to fill out these documentaries. It's amazing. And then they use other animations and other interviews and just all the devices. They're so much richer, okay? So she actually participated and sat down and did like a direct interview with the director, who is J.R. Cutler. You may know him. He did an Elton John documentary, Billie Eilish. I did watch this one, which is The Big Vape, The Rise and Fall of Juul, about the vape pens. And he's a pretty active director, producer in the documentary world. So Martha is really an in-depth look about the rise from the very humble beginnings of basically being a housewife to a caterer to now what is a $1 billion brand.
Yeah.
And the bumps in the roads that happen along that path. I'll give you some of the big surprises or takeaways. So really in her family, her dad was like her hero. He was very hardworking, the love of the garden, and a lot of things that she now holds as dear to her are elemental to both her upbringing and her father. So when she told her father that she was going to get married, he slapped her across the face.
What? Why?
I think he wasn't the right religion or the right type of person because he was Jewish. So his dad was basically being a bigot. But Martha, who, listen, I bought her first cookbook, and Entertaining was, I think, was the title. And her recipes were always like, oh my God, how many ingredients? This is insane. And I went to cooking school and it was still like, this is insane. But she's always been inspirational, right? So even if you took some of it from her, like the way she lived her life was very aspirational, not achievable for most people. And in social media has only perpetuated that in a very unhealthy way, to be honest with you. But okay. So she's going to Barnard and he's going to Yale, and he's a law student. And one of the comments was like, he had an American Express card and she's very impressed by that. So she was just like sold on him. So I think the father was very against her marrying a Jewish man, but they wed in 1961 and off they went to begin a happy life together, or so we thought. So on her honeymoon, it was so weird. I've heard this before. They went on like a honeymoon for like almost 6 months or something. Like it's traveling Europe, and it's like really like the world would allow you, like, because, and this is the times, you were not having premarital sex usually because birth control wasn't even really available. And so you got met and married very quickly. So the honeymoon period was truly go off and get to know each other in every sense without anybody else, impacting or influencing it. So if you were lucky, you took off on a world tour to get to know your husband's penis. No. I don't know. I was just crazy, right? So, but she ended up kissing someone else on her honeymoon.
On the honeymoon?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, she just kind of like, is a handsome dude or something. She's like, okay, so the marriage is off to a great start, okay? And then when she has her one daughter, she realized that, like, she did not have, like, a total maternal instinct. And what's interesting about her daughter, her and her best friend went on years later to do, it's called, like, Oh, Martha something. Mm-hmm. And they would do a watch down where they would watch an episode of her old TV show.
Oh, really?
And basically, like, rip on her. It was actually brilliant. And that's what, listen, there is something to be said about being humbled, okay? And Martha was humbled through what comes about later when she is prosecuted for basically stock manipulation and things like that.
And has
sent
to
prison.
go to jail,
right.
yeah.
So her daughter being able to make fun of her was a good sign of like, she's not as tough as you think she is. And she was unfaithful to her husband. She admits this in the documentary. And I don't know if it was the time or she was so busy catering and meeting people, and her husband were growing farther and farther apart. And when she had the right hand like woman in her catering company, basically is the one that, I don't want to say steals her husband, because no one can be stolen unless they want to be, or you can't really have an affair unless both parties are in agreement. So, their marriage, her and Andy's marriage, was like very much like being pulled apart by her success. And, he basically started a new life and had an affair. I watched Martha Stewart on PBS, okay? That's where most of us, her first TV series was based on PBS. Then it morphed into the network television show, a daytime show, all these things that we watch. By that time, she wasn't married. And some of that persona that she was putting out in the world as the perfect housewife, she had to figure out, how am I going to rebrand myself if that's not what I am anymore? So very smart businesswoman, but in 2023 indicted on like 9 counts of insider trading.
Wow.
I mean, her conviction was something for like 20 years. Like, I don't know if that would even happen today. She didn't serve that much time, but she still did go to prison. Another big thing, she went to solitary confinement.
You got to wonder how the interior of that cell of solitary confinement looked for her, just for her. Like, if she had organized and like put the sheets like folded in a specific way, the pillow was just so, even if it's only her that's going to see it.
I don't think she had that opportunity yet to redecorate it. But really what the series is about, like I said, it's like a redemption story, because she gets out of prison and really her brand and her are so tarnished, she should have been done for. But it's like, how do you reinvent yourself? And Mark Burnett was one of the people that said, I'm going to give you a show again because I believe in you, and I don't think the brand has been tarnished enough that we can't resurrect it.
No,
and
I didn't realize that.
I think because through that and like her association and friendship developing with like a Snoop Dogg and embracing embracing the younger culture. I mean, she's not a young woman.
No,
and yet
isn't she like 80?
she still feels totally relevant because she keeps herself that way.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Evolve or die is the old saying, right? A reinvention is so important. And honestly, it's like that is the overall lesson here. And it's never too late. It gets greater later. Like all those sayings, like it really is. Because she was like a housewife when she first started. Like even what she turned that into should have fundamentally not happened. And then to have the conviction in the middle of like the height of her career, should have not really been able to come back from that. Came back better than ever, and she has seemed to soften to some degree, which I think has helped, because there definitely was an element that she before that was the world and social media. I think if you put out a persona of being too perfect, like it's first of all impossible to maintain, and I think people understand that. So she's 83 years old now, which has got to be the era of don't give 2 Fs. I mean, It's got to be. I mean, really, she's a grandmother. I just think elements of her life have changed. So it is an American saga story of a self-made, basically billionaire. And it's fascinating. And it's a woman and all the things she had to overcome to hold on to her empire. It's Martha on Netflix.
I saw a little bit of her sort of responding to the documentary. And even though she did do this interview, she was talking about it like, well, I don't really like what parts they use. And I think they focus too much on. It's like, that is very Martha to just be
She's
like.
a perfectionist.
That, and also like, as you were saying, it's like she's 83. She's built this $1 billion business and like rise and fall and rise again. She can just say, I don't like it. Who cares? Like,
But
she's amazing.
It's sort of like Cher. It's like, do you want, or Elton John, and this guy did the documentary about Elton John. You're either going to be around for it or not. So either participate or it's going to be done without you. And most things before this have been done without her participation. So you're 83. How blessed you are that you're basically still healthy, totally with it.
Yeah.
Participate in it. And so of course it's a documentary. It's not supposed to be a love letter or a puff piece. So there were elements of it. And her life, like I said, it's tearing down the expectation of perfection. I feel like social media has warped this to the point where the unreasonable expectations, but she was one of the beginning people that put that out there.
Yeah.
And so to show that like what that cost or how that's achievable, I thought was very insightful.
Yeah. I just love that she's in a place where she could say, I didn't love everything about it, but I like that she did it.
Yes. Martha, Martha,
Awesome.
Martha,
Yeah.
Martha, Martha. Martha.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Liz. Okay, Ed, what else you got?
I got a slightly short review for one of the longest series that I've been watching / the frickin' most episodes. So it's like, if you're still going to keep watching Big Brother, you better shut up about it for like 4 months, because no one wants to hear, I watched 4 more episodes, nothing's happened. They had a double eviction. Everyone survived. You're like, ugh. So it's a lot of fast forwarding to see if I want to pay attention to a character or an arc, or if there's something interesting going on. You got to watch the live episodes. You get some Julie Chen. She's going to get interaction, getting complimented from everyone. It's very fun to watch the live episodes. But there's a lot of fast forwarding to get to the actual events versus the living in the house. And I did want to say that even though that's like, there's not much more to talk about this show, if you're not watching it, it won't be on again until next summer.
Is it always just a summer thing?
It's a summer thing. Essentially came out around the same time as Survivor. And both of those were summer series, which was how we get our ratings. We're not doing real programming. We're doing the cheap stuff, the reality stuff. It does kind of have the same spaceship-y vibe, where these people are all just stuck together and they can't go anywhere or do anything. They just have to do whatever shows up and whatever the event is, whatever the stupid food is. And then they one off, every week some red shirt dies. Oh, wait, no, I'm talking about Big Brother, not Star Trek. I'm just kidding.
Question. Yeah. I feel like they never turn off the lights.
It's weird because they do have their own timing. But if something goes on in the house, there's a 24-hour crew. They'll turn the lights back on. But usually it's like lights off from like 1 till 7. And then they have all the cameras that can run with, night vision. So it's not like the lights off mean anything fun's going to happen. That was like 10 years ago. There was a Showtime After Dark version of this. We're like, okay, well, I have Showtime. Oh, you're going to edit that out.
Wow.
Not so much anymore. But yeah, like 36 episodes or something like that a season.
What? 36 a season? Holy moly, that's so many.
Like 3 a week plus eliminations. And then there's like, then they don't eliminate or they bring people back sometimes. Expect the unexpected people.
Wait, what do you win on Big Brother?
Money.
Well, money's good.
How much?
And, and occasionally a longer relationship than anyone who's been on Bachelor. There's actually been some marriages from couples on the show. Just last season, there was a couple that's actually, I think, still together. Or maybe it was this season. Whatever. There's been a lot of seasons.
But is it like $1 million? Like, what is worth it
Not
here?
yet. It's CBS, so it still hasn't cracked $1 million in like 25 seasons almost.
So what are you winning?
It was $500,000 for the longest time, and I think they finally recognized inflation, and now it's $750.
Sure, that's good money. But
Same value at this point.
how long do you have to stay in the house? Like, how long is the run of a...
God, it's like more than 3 months, but not quite 4 months. It's like 100.
It's the whole summer.
100 plus
Okay,
days.
wow.
Yeah, it's the whole summer.
Wow.
I'm always excited when they do an all-star season. So I'm hoping for next season people I already hate or love, instead of having to figure it out and actually watch some episodes in real time, and then I can fast forward.
It's easier if it's somebody
If
you
I already know
yeah.
this character, I'm like, yes, give me more of that. I will pause and play. I'll play their whole entire scene. They're going to argue with someone. Fantastic. Let's hear them yell.
Okay, so Big Brother season gajillion, 1 million episodes.
Literally all seasons are available, every single episode on Paramount Plus.
Wow.
Go for it.
I mean, you could really lose yourself. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ed. John, do you have a surprise for us?
I have watched a movie recently that you might be familiar with. 1994's The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
It is classic. Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, everybody else who's also fantastic. I mean, look, we need to know about Andy Dufresne and Red. So
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do.
and they end up in I won't ruin it. Actually, I won't say where they end up.
Yeah.
No spoiler. It is a fun word, but I don't. If you haven't seen it,
Yeah, don't spoil it. People don't know what happens.
if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it.
I do like the phenomenon of it, that it was not a super successful theatrical release. And then was it USA Network? Somebody had the rights to it and would just like air it all the time. And it became one of the most beloved movies ever.
To me, in my head, it's associated with that phrase like a TNT modern classic or whatever. I could be getting the promotional language wrong. But yes, whatever television network that did that.
Yeah, it could have been TNT or USA Network, but I definitely feel like it was some basic cable that just ran it. Every time you turned around, it was on. And people were like, hey, wait a minute, this is really good. Also, isn't it based on a Stephen King short story and he doesn't like it?
If that matters for you, sure.
Oh, okay. I think that's true.
I think it is. but he might have also now just embraced in the sense of like,
okay.
oh, okay, it's so beloved. But are we all talking out of turn? Hold on. Let's look it up.
I didn't say a negative thing because you are right. I just don't care about that.
Oh, well, all
Right. Okay, fine.
I do have a claim to fame that Sarah once asked me. She was looking at, I don't know what it was. It could have been Letterboxd, could have been something else, but she was like, okay, Mom, what do you think the #1 movie is according to Letterboxd? And I'm like, I don't know, Shawshank Redemption. And she was like, oh my God, how did you just do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I did think that might be it, and it was. So that was my pat on the back moment of like, Mom pulled out of thin air with no clues, and I was right.
Yeah, I contend that story because the website was wrong and that you doing it was wrong. Obviously, it happened. It's the truth, but I don't agree.
Well, it would also help if I remembered exactly what the website or list was that she was referring to, but
I don't think that matters at all. But yes, you did out of a hat completely say this, and it doesn't actually make sense.
well,
All right.
I have this slight, small prediction, and I don't want credit for it. I just want everyone to know I'm the one that said it first on our podcast, not in the world.
In the world.
Definitely sometime in the next 2 Super Bowls, you're going to get a Tim Robbins and a Morgan Freeman doing a sitting on the beach, selling Corona, or some quote-unquote sequel. They do too many
Wow, that is a
commercial
good
sequels,
commercial.
but that's- go for it, get it.
They
Yeah.
better get it soon. Morgan Freeman's not young.
That's true.
Okay.
Wow.
Great.
Okay. All right. I was going to talk about one more thing, but I think I'm going to put a pin in it for
Great.
next time.
Okay.
So stay tuned. I will talk about Somebody Somewhere, one of my all-time faves,
Oh,
has
right.
come back for season 3.
Final season, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
Yeah,
give it
so-
more. Let's not rush it.
We'll give it some breath so I can really talk about every single thing that I love about it, which is every single thing. Okay.
You only get to talk about one show next time, then.
I know.
Okay. All right.
I'll take over and just talk about
Okay.
Somebody Somewhere. Okay. So, but we'll just recap what we officially talked about this episode. So I talked about Matlock, which is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. And I also talked about The Diplomat, which is on Netflix.
Okay, I talked about Breath of Fire on HBO Max and Martha, the documentary, on Netflix.
And I talked about 2 Star Trek series, Star Trek Prodigy and Star Trek Discovery, and also Big Brother, all on Paramount Plus.
I went to the theater and saw We Live in Time, and I also watched The Shawshank Redemption, which is only really available for rental right now.
Only for rental.
I know.
Your local Blockbuster, get there.
See, that's how popular it is. When they know something that's popular, like, you're going to pay for it.
But also it reminds me, like, that's why physical media, you got to buy stuff.
You can go bye-bye forever.
I might own it. I could go home and watch it right now.
For free.
Well, if I plug in the VCR slash
VCR, not a DVD player?
I think I might have a VHS of it, actually, but I think I probably have a DVD.
Good
Wow.
luck finding it.
Well, that's
Okay.
true. I don't know where it is because that's not exactly something I need every day. Okay. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on all of our social media at Podcast Watching, and you can watch all of our episodes on YouTube at the Knack Entertainment YouTube channel. And that's it for this episode of What We're Watching.